live. We're on the air. Okay. Good stuff. I'll just move right over. Good. Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Skruka. I'm speaking to you from the European Space Operations Center in Darmstadt, Germany. I'm joined here today. First of all, welcome to our Google Hangout, our ESAHangout, on the VMC Schools campaign. I'm joined today by some of the team working on the campaign with you, working here on the next team and working on mission analysis at ESAH. First of all, Michael Kahn, to my immediate left, is a mission analyst and certainly brings a wealth of knowledge about Mars to our discussion today. Simon Wood and Andy Johnson at the far end are working spacecraft operations engineers working on the Mars Express mission, and they are joining us today. This is going to be a very focused session. By the way, thank you very much for joining us today. I know it's a busy day, a busy Friday, but that's okay. We're coming to the very crucial phase of our VMC Schools campaign, the execution phase. Today, we're going to do whatever we can to answer your questions. We've already received a number of questions via email, via Twitter, and of course, we're also watching our Google Plus channel where you're watching the Hangout right now. If you post questions there, we'll see them as well. If you post a question via Twitter, please use the hashtag VMC Schools. That's the hashtag we're watching. If you send a question via mail, please send it to vmc@esa.int. I'll pick up my phone there in a little while, and I'll see if any questions come in via email. And of course, as I say, we've already received a number of questions, which we'll begin answering shortly. I want to just cover a couple of general points before we get started. First of all, I want to say thank you very much to the colleagues here at ESAH on the Mars Express team who've been working on the campaign so far. It's been a lot of work for us. It's been a lot of fun. We've really enjoyed getting your proposals. We spent a lot of time working through them. We think we've come up with a very good orbital imaging campaign. And you guys hopefully can give us some more details on that shortly. We are really looking forward to seeing the projects that you put together that are submitted as part of your participation in the campaign. We're really looking forward to seeing that. Also, not only the three gentlemen joining me here today, the extended Mars Express team, that includes our colleagues working on the flight control team, working in flight dynamics. They've also had some participation in getting this campaign done. I'd certainly like to thank them on your behalf, and thank Michel Denis, our Mars Express spacecraft operations manager. By the way, everybody working on this campaign is doing it in their spare time. It's a best effort basis. As such, sometimes some operational requirements have pushed some of this work aside, although this is the fun work. But we certainly hope we met your expectations in getting the images taken and next week delivered to you. One interesting point that has come up with the VMC Schools campaign is that the publicity that we've given to the VMC camera with your responses and your participation have really helped to boost the profile of the VMC camera, this little tiny webcam sitting on board Mars Express. And we are finding a growing amount of interest in the VMC camera from our colleagues here at ESA on a professional basis. The camera is capable of doing some interesting things, some interesting views of Mars that are not only very good for PR and outreach, as we're doing right now for education, but also can be used in a certain way to support science. So thank you very much for the excellent participation coming from outside ESA. If you're looking for VMC images, one of the questions that has come up, and I want to address this one right away, is what can we do with the images? Well, we've posted a number of links in the blog where we have given you links to past projects that other schools, other clubs, other groups have worked on. There are examples of images that individuals have worked on in the past few years. There's also a link to the very excellent VMC tutorial, which was put together by Emily Lakdawala over at the Planetary Society in the USA. She has a complete tutorial on what you can do with VMC images, how you can work with them. All those links are in our blog. That's blogs.esa.int. VMC.com/MEX. Take a look at our blog and you'll see some of those links there. You can also find links to our Flickr gallery. You're free to use any of the images that are in our Flickr gallery. And okay, anything else you find on the ESA website, of course, you can also mash up with any of your projects. Okay, without spending too much more time, I want to hand over to Andy and Simon. And Andy, do you want to start and give us a little bit of an update, or Simon, on where we are with the spacecraft today? And talk us through what's going to happen into Monday and Tuesday of next week, and going into our actual observation orbits.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess the point is at the moment, I mean, we are now past the point of no return. We're now committed to this now. So the as we were tweeting earlier this morning, the commands were uplinked to Mars Express at about 9:30 UTC this morning, and they're now all confirmed on board. So that's it now. So next week at about 4:55 UTC, Mars Express will slew from pointing towards Earth, and we'll turn it to aim VMC at Mars. And then at about 5:30 UTC, the camera will come on, and then we will begin the imaging campaign. The what's currently loaded in at the moment is 3 sets of observations. So the first one will run for about 15 hours, which is certainly going to be the first time we've had VMC on continuously imaging for that length of time. So it's, there's going to be a lot of pictures coming back from that. And we're expecting, I think, around about 900 from the first sweep. It's going to be 2 complete orbits.
You're expecting 900 images in the first slot. Wow.
Yeah. So it's going to be 2 complete orbits of the planet as well. So the next one will come. It's going to be slightly shorter, a 7-hour, 8-hour observation, and then the final one is going to be for 5 hours. And as we said in the blog a couple of weeks ago, the original intention was that we would pick 5, maybe 6 of the proposals with a view to then doing specific pointings of the camera, because as we've said before in the past Google Hangouts, the instruments on Mars Express are fixed to the spacecraft. You can't turn them. If to point at a particular spot on Mars, we have to turn Mars Express and aim it at the spot on the planet that we want to image. And that, with the number of responses that we got, and just given how good most of them were, we wanted to try and basically be able to do as many as we possibly could. And the restriction that we've got with this fact that we have to slew the spacecraft at a point at particular spots on the planet, the spacecraft doesn't turn very quickly. I think it's around about 10 degrees a minute. So if we did a slew to point at one thing, we've then got about 45 minutes until we can turn for the spacecraft to turn to point at something else, and that effectively would restrict us to about 3 pointings per orbit, because our orbit takes about 7 hours. And we were never going to be able to get everybody in. And so what we realized after a while was that actually VMC has an advantage over some of the other instruments on board the spacecraft in that it has a very, very wide field of view. So, and hence we can get the whole of Mars in one shot. The other instruments can't do that. And so we realized quite quickly that if we basically point straight down and just look at the ground as we're passing over it, a lot of what people were requesting will come into the field of view of the camera. And this is a type of pointing that we've used before when we've done our full orbit movies, which you can see on the blog. And so effectively what that works with is it's what we call a spot pointing. So we aim at a particular spot on the planet. It's used for when the instruments want to look at, they want to get an image of Olympus Mons and track it as we go over. In this particular case, we set the center of the planet to be the point that we're pointing at, so that the spacecraft's attitude control system, if we can demonstrate it up here, as we orbit the planet, the spacecraft's attitude control system will continuously turn the spacecraft to keep VMC pointing at Mars as we go around.
And just let me jump out at this point. The other big difference in this campaign is that we're going to be getting images from a range of altitudes, a range of heights over the planet.
Yes, yeah. Well, as we say, this is going to be two complete orbits of the planet on Monday, and then we've got basically another one full orbit for the other two images. Imaging sessions, and so Mars Express is in a very highly elliptical orbit. So it's about 10,000 kilometer altitude at its furthest, and about 300 kilometers as we get close in. So we'll be imaging the entire way around. And the camera is set up at the moment to say with the timings on it, it will take roughly a picture a minute.
Okay.
Can I just bring up a point, just to expand on one of the things that Simon said there, which was about the time it takes to slew the spacecraft. As some of the targets picked were, just randomly, are relatively close together as far as VMC is concerned, that would have meant we'd have to basically pick some of your targets and drop a lot of the other ones because we just wouldn't be able to turn in time to point the next one. Ideally, we would have liked to be able to sort of focus, let's say, for instance, here on Olympus Mons and do a track all the way over it, where you could build up a nice image of all the way around it. But that would have meant just picking one or two teams and then dropping it. So we thought we'd try and get as many people. It's
an element of it's ended up a little bit of a compromise, but I think in the end we got pretty much everybody that got through to the final round. I think the only ones that we couldn't do were the North Pole because it's unfortunate it's in the darkness, but I think the teams have indicated that the South Pole, we'll certainly should get some good shots of that, and they're obviously keen to use those images.
And there was one request, I think the 25th one, which we just aren't too certain that we can do, and that was for a shot of Phobos, and we don't think that's going to work.
Yeah, it was they were fantastic for suggesting it. I mean, from the Celestia animations, it is possible. Phobos does pass between us and Mars during these few days. Unfortunately, at the point there are two occasions when it does this. At those 2 points, we will be Earth pointing because we'll be transmitting data back to Earth and also performing radio science experiments.
So unfortunately, that's an example where the prime mission, the prime science mission, Mars Express has to take.
Because whilst science, we're able to do this because the science instruments are off. We do have another science instrument, which is the antenna. And as we're coming into solar conjunction, where the sun is going to pass in between Earth and Mars, and for a period block out our ability to communicate, as we go into that period and as we come out of that period, we will have the antenna on, transmitting a radio beam back to Earth, and then that will be doing radio sounding to the solar corona. So then it's something that we don't get, we obviously don't get a chance to do very often, and the radio science team are very keen on getting as much data as they can from that. So we'll have to.
And jump over to Andy, and just again, some of the questions that have already come in, we're asking about the schedule of actually delivering the images. Can you just sort of walk us through what will happen later on in the week at the end of the actual, the observation finishes of Tuesday?
Yes, so next week we will, we hope to have them down by Thursday.
Yeah, the current dump plan, because obviously, as we've said, everything is fixed. We have to we turn the spacecraft, we transmit to Earth, we turn back, we take more pictures. We'll store the images on board, and then as our ground stations come up, we'll then transmit it back. But yeah, we're hoping Thursday should be the last.
There's always a problem that sometimes you can lose a ground station, so that data can't come down. It's not lost; it's stored on board. We can get it later, but it
takes more time.
It could draw things out a bit, and then actually getting the images out to the teams, we're just going to email them out really in a zip file.
Okay.
And we're going to give them, for a short period, exclusive use of those images, and then after a while we'll release them on our Flickr account as we normally do. Right,
so we won't actually put these images in the blog and in Flickr as they normally are automatically done. We'll actually keep these are your images, and the team here will split them into allocations by target and send them out more or less as a zip file and an email attachment, or post them where somebody can download them. The plan is at the moment that we will provide a zip file containing the processed images, which is basically the stuff that's run through the VMC image processor automatically. It converts it to, they'll be in PNG format. They'll have been corrected with color adjustments that have been made, and image sharpness and all that kind of stuff. And basically exactly what you see on the Flickr account.
It will be exactly the same as that. And in addition to that, we'll provide the raw images as well. So this is the raw format. This is exactly what you get back at the spacecraft. No processing's been done on it. And the instructions on how to read those are on the VMC blog itself. So if you go to the raw image archive on the VMC blog, it tells you how to do that. In fact, there's plenty of examples of the images in raw format in zip files already on there. What you will get is something very, very similar to that.
Okay,
So when it actually comes to getting them out.
Yeah, that's the next one. is getting
Right,
them out.
once we've got them down on ground, we're then going to have to manually go through and chop them up into the bits for each team. So that's going to take a bit of time, and as Daniel said, I mean, we're doing this on top of our jobs. Yeah, it's going to depend on how busy next week is, and it's our last week before solar conjunction, and as we said before, we're doing a lot of experiments next week, tests. So we'll do our best to try and get at least some of them out to some of the teams next week. It may take a little bit longer, but we'll try hard to get them out as quick as we can.
Try hard, and we may be able to get some of them out as early as Friday next week, and then that won't be everybody, but then the rest coming in the following week, Monday, Tuesday.
We'll do our best to try and get them out as quickly as we can.
Okay. Now, it's very important that you make sure we have your email address. I'll send an email to everybody probably Monday, Tuesday next week, just to confirm that I've got all your email addresses. If you get any bounce backs, I'll try and contact you via phone and make sure I've got your correct email address. Now, there was a question about the actual exposures and the number of images we get per.
The sample rate.
Yeah. I mean, as I say, the sample rate is typically, it's not quite an image a minute, but it's roughly 1 image per minute. What we've decided to do, and I shall just consult, because obviously, you know, when you're operating an instrument as complicated as this, read the instructions. So we have the ability to set 6 different exposure settings. What we normally do for the standard VMC images is we just have 3. And so we decided to stick with that because we know it works. We know what to expect from that. And so what we have is the settings we're using are 5.2, 6.8, and 10 milliseconds.
So basically, one is under, one is over, and one is above. Right.
Yes. Yeah. What you'll find is the longer exposure, it's a little overexposed, but the contrast is certainly better. You get a much better contrast between light and shadow, and so particularly things that are very very three-dimensional sort of structures on the surface show up a little bit better. The low end one, it's sort of again a little bit darker, but you get much more. The glare is really reduced. And then the middle one's kind of a sort of halfway between. So it's, it will give you, depending on what, we felt it gives maximum flexibility in terms of depending on what you're looking for.
Okay. I wonder if we could jump over to Michael for just a moment, and if you could give us any thoughts or comments on the getting images of surface features with respect to the atmosphere. Can we expect? Do we expect any dust storms on Mars? Do we expect any other atmospheric effects? Do we expect any kind of interference?
I think I passed this question to the experts.
Oh, well, I don't know what the season is just now, if there's any dust storms happening, but we may see clouds around the edge of the atmosphere. We've seen that in a few of the VMC images, like last time we had the little slideshow, we picked up some of them.
The North Pole is in the dark.
It's in the dark.
Summer on the South Pole, so it should be dusty.
Could be a little bit dusty. So now, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've had VMC images before where people have downloaded them, and actually we could see clouds in the images and the shadow of the clouds, and they can actually use that to calculate the altitude of the clouds, which actually is a very that's a very sophisticated thing to do. It takes a bit of geometry, but it is possible.
Yeah, it has been done before. Yeah. And in fact, actually, what you were saying earlier with the other teams being interested in the camera now, I mean, as of coming out of solar conjunction, we're actually be doing a reasonably regular set of images for the Omega team.
Okay.
Because they're interested in CO2 clouds and just being able to have a VMC image just showing them global, what's going on globally, to help them give context to their data. So it's
okay. Back to Michael, what are you hoping to see in terms of some of the images coming back?
I think they're going to be really exciting and nice pictures because we're so close to the Terminator most of the time. And I don't take many pictures of Mars with my telescope, but of the moon, the best place to photograph is always near the Terminator. That's where the most dramatic shadows.
Okay. Good stuff. Okay, with that, I think we can probably slide over to some of the questions, and I'll go through these in no particular order. Actually, I have one more that Margaret's a couple more. Okay. Okay, so as I say, starting in no particular order, there's one via Twitter, and how large will the files be?
Well, the 640 by 480 resolution, I think they're around about 300 kilobytes, I
I
think.
can't tell off the top of my head, but
Yeah, I think it's about two to 400 kilobytes.
Okay, we're talking KBs, not
Yeah,
MBs and not
per image. So
Yeah, I mean, as you say, it's a 640 by 480 bitmap effectively, so it's not.
Okay. It's not anything too complex. Okay. Good. Right. Again, I'm just going to flip through some of these. Okay. One of the questions was, what are the 3 exposure settings in milliseconds that will be used? I think we answered that. And how many images will be taken? You mentioned about 900 images in the first.
What I can do is I've got the control system behind me, so
Okay, don't push the wrong button.
I just filter it out. I can.
Actually, while Simon's doing that, possibly the question was asked before about file size. Was that us?
Yeah.
Maybe that was in saying how many images are we going to send to each team, and
Yeah, good point.
I think we're just going to use our judgment and see if how many sort of covers their target area, and just try and send as many as we can
Okay, so,
without overloading the email. But
right. But it could be anywhere in the range of a dozen, or maybe even 20, or could be more.
Could be a lot, yes.
Could be a
So,
lot.
but we'll try not to. We'll try and make sure they've got enough to their project, definitely. And
What we can always do is, rather than sending them as an attachment, we can always just post them somewhere in a hidden link, and then we'll just email you what that link is, and you can download it regardless of the size of the file. Okay, good. Right. So we've done that one. How many images will be taken? So I'm working on that. I want to run over. One question came up, and it's a little bit long. It says, my proposal included Olympus Mons, or whichever frustrum-like mountain whose dimensions are well known and easily available. As the VMC cannot be pointed directly at Olympus Mons, will we be able to use other groups' images if we find ours a little bit difficult to work with?
well, I think we're not going to be able to see much of Olympus Mons at all in this imaging campaign.
Well, I mean, I think what we anticipated was that it will be, I guess, if we have it up here, it'll be on the bottom corner of the image. I think as we fly past it. You may well be. I mean, it's huge, so you may, if there's one thing that is going to show up, it would be that. But it's.
Yeah, but I think as the question is asking, it's you're still free to use any of the images from our Flickr account.
Yeah.
You don't have to just use the ones that we're taking in this campaign.
And there are some excellent ones, Olympus ones on there. But there's a couple that we took last year where you can actually see the shadow in the crater, which is
That's very cool. That's very cool. Okay, so
I think the question here was, does everyone get to use everyone else's pictures after?
Sorry. Yes, you're right. What we'll do then is we will allow exclusive use for one team of these images. Okay, some teams have picked the same target, so they may well get the same images together. But we will not have these in the Flickr account for a short period of time, just to allow them exclusive use.
But if people do want to see some of the other images gathered in this campaign, if you email us, if you let us know if there's something else you want to see, I think we can share.
I mean, if any sort of issues or anything, then just get in touch and we can. And as we said, the Flickr account, the existing images in there, feel free to go for whatever you want.
Which actually leads into another question that had come up, and that is on the usage rights or IP rights of the photos. That's a little bit complex, but in terms of VMC, it's rather straightforward. The VMC images that we're providing, that ESA provides, are fully licensed under a Creative Commons license, a very specific one. It's in the blog. You are free to download, use, mix, remix, mash up those images as you wish. so long as you maintain that same Creative Commons licensing in your final product. And that's all explained in the blog. Furthermore, you are also allowed to use any other image you find in the ESA website. So anything under ESA.in that you find. If you want to do something that is mashing up VMC images with any other Mars images, any other images that you're finding in the ESA image gallery under ESA.in, that's for educational purposes and for nonprofit purposes, that's totally okay. Anything beyond that though, and certainly any commercial usage, please send us a note, and there's a procedure to go through for that. But in terms of your own educational purposes or nonprofit usage, there's no problem to use any of the VMC images under a CC license. You just have to maintain that same license in your projects.
I have the image count.
Okay, yeah, image count for the.
I think we actually underestimated it a little bit. So the first observation has 1,056.
Mm-hmm.
The second observation has 337, and the final observation is
626. So we're just shy of 2,000 images.
2,000 images during three orbits. Right. How many orbits will Mars Express be doing over those 3 days? This is only 3 orbits, but actually you said we're doing about 1 per 7 hour, so it's about.
Yeah. We
3 per day.
it's just short of 3 per day.
Okay. So out of the 9 orbits of out of the 6 orbits of the 2-day period, we get half. That's pretty good. By the way, this is definitely the biggest allocation of orbital time we have ever done for a outreach campaign. Yeah. So you guys are doing well, and certainly part of that was coming from part of the motivation for that was coming from the quality of the proposals that we received. Good for you guys. Another question coming in, what time intervals are the photos taken? I think we've answered that, about 1 per minute. Okay, which format will we receive the data? I think again we've mentioned that PNG is the image file, and you get the raw RAW data to go with it.
Yeah, as I say, the instruction, and as I said before, the instructions on how to read those. If you've got software that reads sort of standard raw files from digital cameras and stuff, some of those programs will load it, but there is instructions on the blog about how to read them. And also in the raw image archive on the blog, there is a small tool that converts the raw files to PNG files without doing any extra processing to them. So if you want to use that, again, it's there. The instructions are all on the raw image archive on the blog. You feel free to use it.
There's also questions of possibly get a movie out of the images.
We're certainly going to try.
Yeah. So yes, I mean
all the movie is a sequence of stills. So
yeah. If you look at the orbit movies that we've already done, I think there are links to them on the next blog. It's exactly the same as what we did here. As what we're doing here. We imaged Mars for roughly an image per minute for a full orbit, and then stitched it together into a movie. And okay, I mean this time, okay, we've got 3 exposure settings. The previous movie we just used 1, but certainly the 2 full orbits. I think we're all looking forward to seeing what that looks like.
Okay. Again, carrying on with some questions. What do you expect that we do with the data? Can we discuss the images with other scientists, or is it only for personal use? Can we try to publish the observations in an astronomical journal? And
yeah, do what you can. As you said, you can do pretty much what you.
Michael, do you have any comments on that?
I certainly hope that people will make them accessible to the public as far as possible, but otherwise there's no restriction.
Yeah,
as long
as you agree with the conditions you set in licensing agreements.
Exactly, and I'll just point out in our original call for proposals in our website, we actually published some terms and conditions, and the most important thing to keep in mind is that actually we did ask the teams who have submitted proposals that they agree to do a project with their images, and then to share that project with us, and of course we'll share it with the public. So if you want to consult with some of the scientists, if you have questions for us, if you have questions for, if you want to post questions in publicly, there's no problem with that. And yes, we really do hope that you will share your results, your findings, your projects as widely as possible. And certainly with us, that's what we expect. Okay, and if you want to publish something in an astronomical journal, absolutely no problem again, following the credit of the credit requirements of the CC licensing. Okay, carrying on again with some more questions. Right, this was coming from the Friedrich Koenig Gymnasium, who says, which of our two targets, Hyponius Vallis or Oxyoplanum, will be chosen? And I think we published that list in the blog, didn't we? We've got the list of which group had proposed which target. And
yeah, it is on the list. Yeah, I think off the top of my head,
yeah,
I do recall us looking at Oxyoplanum. I think that.
I thought they were pretty close together,
Yeah.
so they will both be.
Yeah, I think it's
so
quite because I think the consequence of doing the pointings that we're doing, as we said on the blog a couple of days ago, is that some of these images are going to be taken from quite high altitude. So you're basically going to be looking at the entire disk of Mars, and so things that are quite close together, you're going to see them. Okay, it means that they're going to be, some of these things are going to be sort of small dots on the surface, but unfortunately, orbital mechanics is that our orbit is as it is. We can't suddenly fly lower over a certain part of the planet. But
actually, this one maybe is a good one for Michael. The question is, how far above the ground will the orbiter be when the images are taken? And, we've already mentioned we're in a highly elliptical orbit. At some points in the orbit, we're quite far, and we see the entire disk. But actually, on closest approach, we're actually rather close. What do you expect is the differing effects and what the camera will be able to see?
If I remember correctly, on closest approach, on peri-Aris, you're going to.
The absolute closest approach will just be across the terminator. So that's around about 300-ish kilometers, 370 kilometers. Over the South Pole, where we should have good illumination conditions, I think we're looking at being around about 1,800 to 2,000 kilometers out.
2,000 kilometers, right.
And then the sort of full planet images will be done at around about 10,000.
But boy, if we're around 1,800 or 2,000 kilometers, those will be some of the better VMC images we've ever done, other than the previous 4-bit animations. So those are quite good quality images. Okay, and lastly, what time, GMT and Martian time is the question, will the images be taken?
Okay, the first observation starts at 5:22 UTC, and it goes on until 2100, so say it's about 15 hours. We then have the second one, which is starts at 2. That's on Monday. And then a very early Tuesday morning at 2:55, we then start the second set of observations, and that goes on till just before 8 o'clock in the morning, about 7:59, I think. And then the third one is also starts on Tuesday at 21:30, and then goes on till 6:45 on Wednesday morning.
Okay, those are all GMT Earth times.
UTC.
Oh, sorry, UTC Earth times.
Yeah.
Is there a way to map those to the local Martian time, or does it matter?
As we're going on the Terminator, it's going to be
It's always evening or
Always evening.
sunset or
Okay.
sunrise.
Okay. All right. Okay. Another question has just come in, and it's at what rate does the VMC take photos? And I think we've kind of mentioned that. Basically, it's about 1 time per minute.
Yeah.
And the following question is there a chance of a time lapse? But, well, in a certain way, again, the VMC doesn't do that, but with the set of images that are generated, somebody could.
We'll have two. What we'll end up with is basically 4 full orbit movies. Effectively, you'll have a set of images that correspond to 4 complete orbits of the planet. So you could conceivably put together, if we work out the same, if you manage to find the same spot in the orbit from the 4 observations, then you would actually see the planet rotating underneath you.
Okay.
I think if you're talking about time lapse, if I get the manual out again, which is getting a bit beaten up. Okay, so we've got lots of charts here. And this is increasing exposure settings, so we've only gone down to about here. So there are longer exposure settings we could use, but once you get too long, just the heat of the unit just washes it out. But we have done long exposures where we got the full image.
Yeah,
Just looking into
I mean,
space.
the main issue with doing very long exposure settings with something like this is that Mars is actually very bright, and so even the longest exposure setting that we've got, as Andy was saying, we've only gone partway down the list of what the camera's capable of. It's actually going to be quite, it's actually overexposed even at that level. So if we went much further up, it would just be a white blob on the screen. We wouldn't see anything.
Okay. This is an excellent question. Just come in. Can I see at which point in space the image is taken? And that puts me in mind of the 3 Celestia animations we published in the blog,
Yep.
which actually are coming from the orbital files as will be flown.
Yes.
So indeed, it would be, if someone had Celestia, which is a free download tool, someone actually could.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we could probably do is, obviously, we've already converted our flight dynamics products. We basically have a tool that allows us to take the products that come out of the flight dynamics analysis of the spacecraft attitude and orbit and convert that into Celestia such that the position around the planet is correct, and even the attitude of the spacecraft is correct. So I believe we did this for the initial call for proposals. We put that up on the blog. We could certainly update that with the latest stuff.
Right.
So if you download that, load it into Celestia, you'll be able to. The images are all time tagged anyway, so the actual image files will have the precise time at which the image was taken. So in the file name, so you will be able to.
That's an important point. In the file names, as they go into Flickr now, or as they go into the blog now, actually it's day of the year, time in UTC, and then it's point.
The image number, basically.
The image number, and then for the time on the seconds, I think it's point a tenth or 100th of a second as well. So you actually get the time rather accurately when the.
So yeah, I would say combining that information with the Celestia setup, you should be able to see that.
Can we actually post the Celestia data file, or should we export it as a movie?
Well, we have the 3 movies already. I mean, the 3 movies are already on the blog. You can see those, but yeah, we can certainly upload the Celestia data files.
Okay, so if you download Celestia, which is it's a free tool, you can then put those data files into Celestia, and you can play it forwards or backwards. You can pause it, and it does give you a pretty. I think the map for Mars in Celestia is pretty accurate.
Yeah, and again, you can always. There's an option to turn on the latitude and longitude grid, so that also is it is pretty accurate actually. So yeah, we can certainly have that up next week.
Okay. There's a question that came in from Sternwarte Siebengebirge here in Germany, and is it possible that the project is followed by an exhibition and our jury meeting in September, October? Well, certainly there's no problem. Any of the participants are free to exhibit their projects as they wish. We will say when we see your project, when you contact us, which you've promised to do within the end of July or the end of the current school year, we will certainly post, publicize, publish, or link to whatever website you've set up or whatever online content you've put together. So we will certainly publicize that through our blog and via our social media channels here at ESA. And I would have to talk to Sternwarte Siebengebirge directly, separately, to find out what you've got planned for September, October. But yeah, something could potentially be done there. And just let me scan through the photos. I think there was one more here which I didn't mention. Right. Maybe for Michael, there's a question about dust clouds which are being found on Mars, and are those affecting the orbit or the science, or indeed can MEX see dust clouds on the surface?
I think this refers to this paper that was published. It hasn't confirmed it's dust, and I'm not sure that it's actually known that it's dust.
I don't think it's been confirmed.
Yeah,
What
I
they
don't think
actually
anybody knows what they.
Anyways,
Depends what it is.
Yeah.
so it was at Germinator, so at Berlin, and it's only I think it was only in the morning. But I don't think it can in any way affect the spacecraft. It's in atmospheric effect.
Also, I think even we're still quite high up, so I think it would be a problem anyway. But it's something that keep an eye on the images. Maybe we'll see one of those during the observation period.
So, but I think it was just in one location, which is also quite closely defined. So you'd have to look at it. So you just have to look carefully at these images.
Also, in general, I mean, dust storms, we can get global dust storms that can just, any optical images just get wiped out. And I think, wasn't it the first satellite to fly past Mars, just happened to be there at a dust storm and didn't see very much. So yeah, it can affect some of our instruments, but not all.
Another question, do you ever try to combine some of the pictures for sharpness and noise reduction? That's an excellent question, because indeed, this kind of processing is exactly what we've seen done in the last couple of years with earlier sets of VMC images. And in this case, when you've got the under the prime and the overexposure, indeed that can be done. Do you want to?
We've tried, again, just lunch break, try a few together, but we just don't have the time to play with much of the VMC images. That's the big issue.
So this is stacking. It's called
Stacking, exactly. And
I've done it. Yes.
and does it actually give you an improved?
Certainly, it does improve. It does take out some of the noise, and it does certainly improve the contrast. But you have to keep in mind we're just talking about 640 by 480. But I mean, these images are people, astronomers, professional astronomers 50 years ago, have given an arm and leg to images.
Right.
I think with the processing and the, as you say, with the stacking, I mean, I think with what you see on the Flickr page, we basically just have a tool. We use a tool called Image Magic that we pass all of the VMC images through that adjusts color depth and everything. Because what you'll see from the actual the raw images is the system is quite washed out, so we have to kind of correct for that. But we do the same processing to absolutely every image that we get, because as Andy was saying, we can't sit there and tweak every single image to get the best out of it.
So we're actually hoping that the participants will do some.
Absolutely. I mean, what we found, you clearly can get better quality out of the pictures if you sit there and actually, do the processing specifically for that particular image. We've seen some really, really great ones. I think to say on Emily Latterwalder's side, there's some of the stuff on there is really, really good. And in terms of the stacking, I mean, the one thing to be aware of is obviously we are moving, so the spacecraft is moving. So it's not as though we're going to be sat over one spot and you're going to have 5 or 6 images that are identical. It will require a little bit of kind of lining things up and sort of overlaying them, sort of in a sort of mosaic like that to actually bring up the detail. But it's certainly going to be possible. And with the 3 different exposure settings, you should be able to combine these together in a very interesting way.
Right. Okay. Good. Well, I think we've answered all the questions that have come in so far. Oh, Barbara's just waiting that there's one more coming in. Before we go on to that question, is there anything we haven't covered that you wanted to make sure we mentioned in today's segment?
I think as I say, everything's all go. We're ready. The commands are all on board. The dumps will begin. I mean, we actually start dumping the images pretty much straight away. It's going to take until about Thursday before we have them all down. And
one of the questions I'd seen earlier was what's our one-way light time? What's the time?
It'll be 21 minutes 7 seconds.
21 minutes, 0.4 and 0.4 seconds.
Right now.
One-way light time, 21 minutes, a few seconds. And what's our?
So that's the current distance of 378
million kilometers.
378 million kilometers. And what's our bit rate? Is that something that?
It's around about 57.
It depends which ground station we're on, but
Which,
yeah. So if we're using one of the larger NASA 70-meter ones, we can still use 228 kilobits per second, which is the highest our radio will allow.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but could be slower.
It could be down.
Could be 1999 home dial-up modem.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much how it is.
Okay, so it does take some time to get the pictures. Right, very good question coming in. Is there anything that me and my students can do between 25 and 27 May next week on Monday, Tuesday, except waiting? And maybe that maybe we could plan to do 1 or 2 updates in the blog and let people know what we're seeing, because what you're using the live telemetry during the passes. Will there be some information you'll be able to share that
Well, I mean, we can certainly get an idea of, because we'll know whether or not the cameras come on. We'll know when the data's been generated. We'll get that information back reasonably quickly, and we will start getting a trickle of images, because I mean, we will start. We will be dumping the packet stores over a number of days, and so we will be checking to make sure that things are actually looking okay. So yeah, we can certainly provide updates next week.
Okay, so no. Go ahead. Michael.
And again, as we pointed out, we have this huge Flickr archive, and science is all about not just looking at images from now, but comparing to what it looked like at different points in time. So you can extract those images, and also you can, if you want to do this processing, as we mentioned, that's just a matter of practice. So you just can hone your skills on them, and then you're ready. But it's also a comparison of how situations have changed between, say, a year ago and 3 years ago and now.
Well, I think the team that was looking at the South Pole, I think that's going to be a particularly interesting one, because obviously it's the summer in the southern hemisphere at the moment. So the South Pole will have shrunk quite dramatically. What would potentially be quite interesting, I don't know what your plans were for your project, would be to look at the images that we took at the South Pole around Christmas time, which is sort of just as summer was about to start, and you'll see just how much bigger the bubble cap is there and compared to what it is now, and actually being able to get an idea of how fast it shrinks.
Right. So again, going back to the Flickr archive, and I think some of the images there are going back now, I want to say at least 4 years.
We have every single
one since the recommissioning in 2007.
And including the Beagle.
And including the Beagle separation, which was the original purpose of the VMC camera. So in 2007, we've got basically 8 years of...
So that's
16,000.
It's something. It's somewhere between like 10 and 15,000.
So certainly going back to the Flickr archive, identifying some of the images that include some of the targets that you've asked for this time, and becoming familiar with those, doing something with those images according to what project you want to do, and then being able to make a comparison to what you're getting on 25, 26 May. That would be one good time usage. Right, we're almost coming to the end of our hour. If people have questions, I think there's one more. Thank you very much. Right, I think we might have answered that one. Right, is it possible to target the South Pole instead of the North Pole for the HCPLA Kleindorf?
Yeah.
Yeah, Kleindorf,
Yeah.
Which I think we'd already said that. We
Yeah.
tweeted saying, whoever had asked for the North Pole, we're going to give you South Pole instead.
Yeah.
So that's a yes. And about the North Pole, which is going to be darkness, basically.
Yeah, I mean, we may be able to see a little bit of it, because I mean, we do come up. We'll sort of come up over here, and it's probably going to be sort of about that much of it. So you might sort of get a small bit of it.
Okay. The question then is, well, since we're going to offer the South Pole images, what's the comparison in what the images will show of the South Pole versus what they would have shown of the North Pole, since we're at a different altitude?
Well, I mean, to some extent, we're a bit of similar altitude, because our parasite is basically over the equator, so the altitude actually will be very, very similar over the North and South Pole. The main difference is simply that the South Pole is the North Polar cap is much bigger than the South Pole cap, and also it's going to be it's summer down there, so it will have shrunk. But as we said before, if you look through some of the images that we took, I think particularly around Christmas last year, you'll see basically what the South Pole looks like just as it comes out of darkness. And I think certainly an interesting project will be looking at how that shrinks.
Right. Okay. This is kind of a fun question. Can we get a screenshot of our commands being sent to the VMC? Well, I think indeed that's what we put in the blog. this morning, because this morning
Yeah.
the upload was taking place. That was at 7:47 UTC, which is 9:47 local.
And we just put up a post on the blog about a couple of hours ago, where we actually had a screenshot of basically what you see behind us. So this is the mission control system, and so we basically gave you a screenshot of the TC history for the first observation, the one on Monday morning, basically annotated explaining what all of the commands do. So basically the commands that will be slowing the spacecraft, the commands that will be turning on the camera, and the commands that will be turning the spacecraft back to Earth after we've.
So if someone is doing a project where they're documenting the entire process of sending the commands, so they could actually grab that screenshot and they can include that.
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
project.
Yeah, and if you want more information, get in touch with us and we'll explain the process a bit more.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. Okay. Another question, can you send links to the processing sites? Well, again, if you look at the blog, the blog is esa.in/mex, you'll see there's 2 posts down. There are about a half a dozen links to, as I mentioned, to Emily Bakdawala's online tutorial, to some of the past images in the Flickr account, which were processed by people all over the world. Some were done by people in the US. I remember one was a chapter in South Africa, and in the captions of those images was a brief description of what they did for the processing. So that's certainly very valuable to take a look there and see what.
Also from the Mars Express blog itself, if you look in the toolbar on the top, there's a link to Mars Webcam, which is basically the VMC blog itself. And that's where you'll find the raw image archive and also the link to the full Flickr account as well. So.
Yes, good point from Simon. There's actually 2 blogs. The MEX blog is where we've been posting all the stuff about our current VMC schools campaign. But of course, there is, the VMC blog, blogs.esa.in/VMC. And that, of course, is the image archive of the VMC camera with, as Simon mentions, the tools and some description, some background information on processing. Good, I think we're going to finish up there. Thank you very much for some excellent questions sent in via
Just one
Twitter.
thing I would like to say is just one really, really cool thing about this project is just that we kick something off, we just release this out and then see what people do with it. And I think that's what the really exciting bit of this is to see what people come up with. And that's what I'm really, really looking forward to all this, just to see what they do with it. And not just the scientific ones, but the artistic side as well. And I'm really looking forward to these projects coming back.
I think the thing is that when we first realized that we had an opportunity to take VMC images at points when we wouldn't have normally done it. We, after not really having an idea of what can we do with all of this time, and then obviously after the discussions that started, well, why don't we open it out to the public and get schools involved? We really had no idea what the response was going to be at all. We didn't know whether we were going to get 2 responses or 200, but the responses that we got, to get as many that we did and to get as many really good ones that we did, was absolutely fantastic. And so that's one of the reasons why we did everything we could to try to at least get most of the people something, even if it's not necessarily a direct point.
No, the response has been excellent. Michael, any final comments?
So, excellent, completely remember.
Okay. Yep, 13 different countries or jurisdictions, which Puerto Rico is part of the US. I don't know, I'd have to quickly think. I think it's 7 different languages and 9 different languages. 25 really good proposals. We wish you good luck with your images. It looks like they're going to come. I'll finish off with a word of caution. Anything can still go wrong. This is an actual operational mission. We can have problems with the ground stations. It's possible problems with the spacecraft. And we don't expect the aliens to suddenly jump in, but there could be issues that restrict the number of images we get. So let's keep our fingers crossed. The team here have done everything they can to make sure the imaging goes as planned. And there's just one more quick question coming in, which I'll pass over. We've got about a minute left. Will the increased CO2 in the atmosphere above the poles impede the images?
No, I don't think so. I mean, maybe you'll see some more clouds, which again, I think would be quite, from a scientific point of view, would be interesting.
Yeah.
I'd worry more about the dust.
Yeah, dust is probably more than CO2. Great. Andy, Simon, Michael, thank you very much for your time today. If you've got questions, once again, email to vmc@esa.int, Twitter, using the VMC schools hashtag. You can post a comment in the blog. We check the blog several times throughout the day, and we'll do so. We'll be putting some additional information next week into the blog on progress. We'll put the Celestia source files. And we'll try and keep you as updated as we can, also via Twitter, via the VMC, the ISA Operations Twitter account on progress. And we wish you luck. And thank you very much for taking part in our campaign.
Thank you.